let's talk about two organizations. Both of these organizations work in the same sector. Both serve communities that genuinely need them, and both have committed teams who show up every day and are actually doing the hard work, the meaningful work that the organization mission is explicitly bringing out. And so both of these organizations have applied to the same funder for the same grant in the same granting cycle. One is getting the money and one is not getting the money. So this is the part that will probably bother you a bit. The one that lost the fund or that didn't get the grant wasn't the one that was doing the weaker. It's not the weaker organization. In many ways, it's the one that's actually doing better work. And so you look back and wonder what really happened. So that gap, that space between doing brilliant work and being chosen to be funded is what I want to talk about today. I call it the credibility gap. And once you see it, you can't actually unsee that gap. So let's decode the possible scenarios. When your proposal lands on a funder's desk, what do they actually look at first? So for this question, most organizations actually assume the answer is the mission, the story, the number of people reached, the lives changed, the photographs from the field, which in most cases is true because that's the first phase the program officer gets to interact with the organization in most cases. But beyond the program officer's emotional investment in your mission and all the package that they are seeing, someone on the finance and compliance side is quietly asking a different set of questions towards the same organization. So when they're at the back end, they're asking, can this organization manage the money, for example? Do their books hold up? What was their last audit or when was their last audit and what did that audit reveal? Can they account for this grant that they're asking for? How can we know that they're going to account for this grant? Did they account for the last grant that they were given in the way that it was prescribed to be reported, for example, or to be accounted for? So, but the thing is, those questions must be answered before the love story between the mission can be cemented. Unfortunately so, in many instances, these questions get answered using signals that you may not even know that you're sending. For example, your financial reports, your audit history, your internal controls, the way your budget is structured, and whether your numbers actually tell a consistent story. So a funder is not just deciding whether your work matters. They have already decided that, and that's why you are in the running. What they are really deciding at this point is whether they can trust you to steward their money and report it on it credibly. This is a different question and it's answered with the different evidence. It's different from the mission, the story, and the photographs coming from the field. So what makes this actually very frustrating most of the time is that, and it's so common, is that most organizations have no idea they are losing on this front. And there's a reason for why they are also blind to that knowledge. It's because the credibility gap is almost invisible from the inside. And this is why when you look at your organization, for example, you see the effort, you see the late nights, the careful program design, the relationships in the community. That's very visible. And that is what you're seeing from the inside. And you see how hard everyone is trying. And because you can see all that, you naturally assume a funder can see it too. But but they can't. Unfortunately, that's not the scenario they're having. A funder doesn't see your effort, they see your evidence. So for you, you rate yourself on intention and impact, and they rate you on infrastructure and accountability. You are looking at two different scorecards, and nobody tells you that the one in your head is not actually the one that is being used to judge you. And it's not the one that's sitting between you and the grant agreement that you are hoping to sign. This is why I meet so many leaders who are genuinely confused. They will say, we do good work, our community loves us, our reports are full of results, and we still keep getting turned down. And the honest answer is usually that the work has never been the issue. The signals around the work are. So that blind spot is dangerous precisely because it feels like the opposite of a blind spot. From the inside, everything looks fine. You feel ready. You believe that you are fundable. And that confidence is exactly what stops you from looking at the part that funders are actually examining. Which now brings me to the hardest thing that I have to say in this whole conversation. And I want to say it plainly because someone needs to say it. A great mission will not save a fragile finance function. I know how that sounds. We work in a sector that is built on mission. True story. We believe, rightly, that the work matters more than the paperwork in many cases. But funders are increasingly making a distinction that we have been slow to actually accept. They are separating the quality of your mission from the maturity of your institution, and they are funding the second one. Think about it from their side. A funder is not only asking, is this a good cause? They are asking, if I put $200,000 into this organization, will it be managed well, reported on properly, and survive long enough to deliver the outcomes we agreed on? A beautiful mission attached to a fragile institution is, to a funder, a risk. And funders are in the business of managing risk that comes with them giving out their money. So you can have the strongest mission in your sector and you still lose out again and again. To an organization with a clearer financial structure, a cleaner audit, and a more credible way of accounting for the money. And that's not unfair. It's just a different game than the one most of us thought we were playing. And so once you understand that, the whole picture gets to change for you and for your organization. Because you see, the problem was never that your work wasn't good enough. The problem is that your institution credibility hasn't yet caught up with your mission. That is the gap. That is the disconnect. So what will you do about that? Well, now that you are starting to get unblinded, if I may use that word. So here is the good news. And it's genuinely good news. I can say with the fact. The credibility gap is not a verdict on your organization. It is actually a stage. And stages can be moved through. Every organization I have worked with that now wins funding consistently was at some point sitting exactly where you might be sitting now, doing real work and quietly losing grants without understanding why. What changed wasn't their mission. It was that they closed the gap between the work they were doing and the credibility they were actually signaling. They listened and they were able to see the gap and they worked to close that gap. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to walk you through exactly what that gap costs, where it hides, and how organizations close it. But the first step is simply to see where you stand right now. And that is what the Institutional Financial Readiness Scorecard is for. It is a short, honest assessment that shows you how a funder is likely to read your organization and where your gaps are. The link, if you're interested in taking the scorecard, is in this video, in the description below. Because at the end of the day, your mission deserves better than to keep losing to organizations that aren't doing better work. They're just sending better signals, and that I know is something you can fix. My name is Adem, and I will see you in the next one.